what it is about it. I don't know what it is about it.
Shalawam, brothers and sisters. It's your boy, Brother Kwame from the Team Jesus, the home of the True channel. And I'm back at it with another video. And the name of this video is The Lucifer Doctrine Was Created by Man. Now, before I get into this, let me be very clear. I am not saying that Satan doesn't exist. What I'm saying is that Satan isn't Lucifer, and Lucifer isn't Satan's original name. That false doctrine was created by man. Now, the verse that many people use to teach that doctrine is a verse that a innumerable amount of people take out of context. And that verse is Isaiah 14 and 12. Join me there. Join me to the book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12. Join me to the book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12. And the word of the Lord say, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? See, when the King James Bible was written, the translators took the Latin word Lucifer from the Latin Vulgate, and then they put it in the King James Bible. However, as you can see on the screen, the original word in Isaiah 14 and 12 in the Hebrew text is Hayalau, which means morning star. So before I get into it with the scriptures, let me give you a little history of what happened. When the Latin Vulgate was written in 382 AD, the Latin translators took the Hebrew word Hayalau, which means morning star, and they translated it into the Latin word Lucifer. In other words, if you want to say morning star in Latin, you would say Lucifer. So when they translated the Hebrew word Hayalau into the Latin word Lucifer, they were not trying to say that Satan's name was Lucifer. Because if that was the case, you would then have to go back to the Hebrew, which we know that came before the Latin, and then call Satan Hayalau. But we know that nobody calls him that. See, all the Latin translators were trying to do, all they was trying to do was properly translate the Hebrew word Hayalau, which means morning star, into the Latin language. That is all they were trying to do. Now, here's what happened. Later on, when the King James Bible was being put together, the King James translators, they took the word Lucifer from the Latin Vulgate instead of using the earlier Hebrew text. So that is why we see the word Lucifer in our Bibles today. That is not a reference to Satan's name. It's just a Latin translation of the words morning star. Now, look at this. On the screen is an interlinear Bible with the Latin Vulgate Bible on the left and the King James Bible on the right. Now, look at verse 12. This is Latin. The word of the Lord say, Quomodo didst di calo Lucifer. Now, let's look at the King James Bible. Next to it, the word of the Lord say, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Notice that all the letters or words in the King James Bible are English words except the word Lucifer. See, this explains how the King James translators took the word Lucifer directly from the Latin. They didn't translate it to English like they did all of the other words. Because if they did, it would have said morning star instead of Lucifer. You can see the same words in both translations, Latin on your left and the King James Bible on your right. See, as time went on, people turned the Latin word Lucifer into a personal name when it was never meant to be a personal name in the first place. All it was a Latin translation of the words morning star. So that is how Lucifer became Satan's name. That false doctrine of Lucifer being Satan's original name was created by man. The Bible does not substantiate anywhere that Satan's name was Lucifer. Now, before I get into it with the scriptures, here's the part that's really hard to understand. And this is where people are going to also have a problem with what I'm saying because of the doctrine that they are used to. Here is the point. Isaiah 14 and 12 is not even talking about Satan. It is talking about the literal king of Babylon, which at that time was Nebuchadnezzar. Remember, Lucifer just means morning star. The reason the term morning star is used in Isaiah 14 and 12 is because stars produce light. Stars are high above us and they shine their lights down upon us. Nebuchadnezzar had became risen up in his pride, and he had exalted himself as if he was the light of the world. So he is sarcastically being addressed as the morning star, or Lucifer in the Latin. But however, we already know that the true morning star in the Bible is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And I'm going to show you this with the word. Join me to the book of Revelation chapter 22 verse 16. Join me to the book of Revelation chapter 22 verse 16. And the word of the Lord say, I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright and morning star. You see that? So we see here that Jesus Christ himself has said that he is the bright and morning star. Why? Because he, the King Jesus, gives the true light to the whole world. See, Nebuchadnezzar tried to exalt himself up into this position. But however, the Most High God appointed this position to his son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Now join me to the book of John chapter 8 verse 12. Join me to the book of John chapter 8 the 12th verse. And the word of the Lord say, Then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. So here we see Jesus Christ explaining that he is the one that gives the world the light that we need. In other words, Jesus Christ teaches us how to live righteously by setting the perfect example for us to follow. Now, in the Old Testament, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, exalted himself into this position. This is why he was called Lucifer or morning star. It's like saying it like this: you're so great, so how did you fall? Mr. Light of the world. So the Most High sarcastically referred to Nebuchadnezzar as the morning star, because Nebuchadnezzar thought that he was greater than he was. Now, many people read Isaiah chapter 14 with the presupposition that won't allow them to see what it's actually saying. Since they already believe that it's talking about Satan, they can't see that it's clearly referring to the literal king of Babylon, who again at that time was Nebuchadnezzar. You just can't start at Isaiah chapter 14, the 12th verse, and create a whole doctrine out of it. You have to examine the whole package. And I would say a good start would be at the start of verse 19 in the 13th chapter of Isaiah, and read on up to get the understanding, the proper understanding of what's being said and who it's talking about. But I'm going to break them down in verse 11 in the 14th chapter. So now join me to the book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 11. Join me to the book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 11. And the word of the Lord say, thy pomp or thy pride is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, meaning all the festivals and the celebrations that you had, all of that has ceased, is what he's saying. The word of the Lord say, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. What this is saying, that Nebuchadnezzar went from having all of that power to the Most High God bringing him down to nothing. So right now we're reading about how powerful Nebuchadnezzar was and how the Most High God took him out of power. And he then fell down to nothing. I want you guys to soak that in your membranes. Now let's continue to read in the next verse, verse 12. And the word of the Lord say, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? You see that? This is where the assumption of this being Satan kicks in, without people examining the whole text. If you just read the whole thing in context, you will see that it was talking about the fall of the Babylonian Empire and Nebuchadnezzar, its king. So when we get to verse 12 and we see the words, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? The only reason for you to think that this is talking about Satan is because you already have a pre-existing doctrine already in your mind. The person who was fallen from the first 11 verses was the king Nebuchadnezzar. So why would it change over to Satan in verse 12? Verse 12 is a continuation of the first 11 verses. However, because it says fallen from heaven, people just assume that it's talking about Satan. But it's not. Why does it say that he's fallen from heaven? Watch this. Join me to the book of Lamentations chapter 2 verse 1. Join me to the book of Lamentations chapter 2 the first verse. And the word of the Lord say, how hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger. Okay, so this is talking about the Most High being angry with his children, which was the children of Israel. Now let's see what the Most High God did to the children of Israel. The word of the Lord say, and cast down from heaven onto the earth the beauty of Israel, and remembered not his footstool in the day of his anger. You see that? this says that the Most High cast down from heaven onto the earth the beauty of Israel. Now, does this mean that the Most High took the nation of Israel up into heaven where he was, and then he threw the children of Israel down to the ground? Of course not. He casted us down from heaven in the sense that he took us from a high position, the children of Israel from a high position, and then he brought the children of Israel down to a very low position. That is the same thing that happened to Nebuchadnezzar. So when we see the words falling from heaven, it is not literal. The Most High took Nebuchadnezzar out of a lofty heavenly position and then brought him down to nothing. Now join me back to the book of Isaiah 14 and 12. And the word of the Lord saith, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Now remember, Lucifer is not the name of a person. Lucifer is just a Latin name that means morning star. Nebuchadnezzar in his power was lifted up above everyone else like a star in the sky. But the Most High God brought him down. As I continue to read, Son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? And again, we know now, or we should know now, that this is not talking about Satan, because the precept in this verse is in the same chapter in verse 6. Okay, we see here that verse 12 say that he weakened the nations. Now when we look at verse 6, the word of the Lord say, He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. Watch this. He that ruled the nations in anger. That is how Nebuchadnezzar weakened the nations. Nebuchadnezzar, he oppressed everybody. Now let's go to verse 13. And let's finish breaking this down. The word of the Lord say, For thou, Nebuchadnezzar, hath said in thine heart. So we're dealing with pride now. It says, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregations in the sides of the north. So we see Nebuchadnezzar, his pride in display. I. Now this verse is not literal. This verse is not talking about somebody literally going into heaven and literally setting a throne above the literal stars. It's not talking about that. This is metaphorical language that paints a picture of a proudful person who wants to be above everybody else, including the Most High. That is the mindset that Nebuchadnezzar has. Now let's read verse 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. Here it is. I will be like the Most High. You see that? Nebuchadnezzar said that he would be like the Most High. How? By attempting to rule over the whole world. And this is exactly what Nebuchadnezzar thought that he was going to do. His army had conquered so many people, he thought that he was unstoppable. Verse 15, the word of the Lord says, Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. And this meaning the grave, not the place of torment. Now let's finish this Satan is Lucifer doctrine in the next verse 16. They that see me shall neverly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, now watch this. Is this the man? Hold on, stop right there. Is this the what? Is this the man? The Bible just said, is this the man? Does this say, is this the spirit? No. Does this say, is this the angel? No. The Bible says, is this the man? This is not talking about Satan. This is talking about a man. What man? Nebuchadnezzar. Let's continue to read. It says, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? We already read twice that Nebuchadnezzar, he stroked the people with a continual stroke, and that he ruled the nations in anger. Nebuchadnezzar is a man that did shake the kingdoms. Now, I can read the rest, but this should cut it up right here. This should be clear that this passage is not talking about Satan. Isaiah 14 and 12 is talking about a man who was consumed in pride to the point that he began to think that he was the light of the world, that he began to think that he was the morning star. So the Most High God took him down. So Lucifer is not Satan. Lucifer is a term that could be applied to anyone who exalts themselves to a position that is not his. Now let me say this one more time, because people attend to hear what they want to hear. So I'm going to say this one more time, because like I just said, they only hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear what's actually being said. Brother Kwame is not saying that Satan does not exist. Of course he does. What Brother Kwame is saying in this video, that Isaiah 14 and 12 is not talking about the literal Satan. Isaiah 14 and 12 is talking about Nebuchadnezzar. People, Nebuchadnezzar was called Lucifer, not Satan. Nebuchadnezzar was called Lucifer, not Satan. That is what I'm saying. Again, Lucifer is not a personal name. Lucifer is a word that simply means morning star. Man, it's your boy, Brother Kwame, and I'm back with that fire, godly truth. And all summer long, I'm going to continue to destroy every single false doctrine, whether you want to believe it or not. If anybody has any questions, any video requests, Brother Kwame will deal with it. He will pray about it, then deal with it. So that being said, Satan is not Lucifer, and Lucifer isn't Satan's name. It's your boy, Brother Kwame, and the team Jesus, and I am out. Shalawam.